You are listening to a special edition of the IU Report with Grant Shouse and Mike Hutsell. Their preview of IU's football game against Wisconsin at home, Senior Day in Bloomington. Only on the Central Indiana Sports Report.
Welcome back, IU fans, to a special edition of the IU Report here with Grant Shouse and Mike Hutsell here tonight as we preview the Indiana-Wisconsin football game on Saturday coming up here tomorrow. And Mike, this is a game for Indiana that it's just one of those games. It's just at this point, it's on the schedule and they're going to play it, I feel like.
Well, it's important. It could be the last home game for Fernando Mendoza. It could be the last home game for Lewis Moore. All these, senior day. It's a chance to send out D'Angelo Pons, Aiden Fisher, all those guys. Last chance to maybe get a chance to see them in person. So from that standpoint, it's a big day. This is the group that absolutely transformed Indiana football over the past 2 seasons. So you want to appreciate those guys, and you just want to beat the absolute shit out of Wisconsin. Let's be real. It's an opportunity to exercise a lot of demons through the years that team with that ugly W on its helmet has put up, and they've kind of just used Indiana as a footstool for several years. Low-key, one of just the worst opponents Indiana's had to face over the last couple decades. We've talked about making things personal. Let's make this one personal as well.
I think it's important that if you're listening to this and you're going to the game on Saturday, stay for all 4 quarters. Give this team the respect it deserves. Mike, ironically, I'm watching Old Dominion play Troy, and I just watched the Old Dominion quarterback bust for a 26-yard touchdown run. How about that? We've seen that.
That's short yardage for what he did to Indiana.
No kidding.
That's a goal line carry.
Give this team the respect it deserves as fans. This is probably for a lot of people one of the teams that made some people fall in love with Indiana football this year, last year with these guys that come over from JMU. I'm looking forward to being there. It's a noon game. It's going to be kind of a weirdly warmer, like upper 60s Saturday in November, which is unusual this time of year, it seems like. So they deserve this. You got to play the game. It's important. And they're staring down a chance, Mike, to be the first Indiana team to ever win or to ever be 11-0 here for Indiana football.
How about that? Talk about something you never thought you would ever say. A chance to put 11 wins on the board. Coming into this game, more than a 30-point favorite. And you're facing a team who got a big win last week, but their punter was their leading passer in the game. So I believe there may have been a little bit of a fluke involved. We'll call him Fluke Fickle now, the coach. I can't believe they're bringing him back. They're too cheap to fire. They're too cheap to fire him, and they're spinning it as he's transforming things and he's changing the overall atmosphere of the program. They've gone from smash mouth, O-line centered offense to the spread, and it's just taken a little bit of time to get it all together. I think that's a little bit of BS. I think he went away from what the identity of Wisconsin football was, which was that smash mouth, having two guards on the field that had 1 or 2 vowels in their collective last names. It was 43 letters total. You always had Jonathan Taylor or Monty Ball, or go all the way back to Ron Dane type at running back, and they just bulldozed people for so many years with Barry Alvarez and then Brett Bielema, and he went away from that identity. Paul Chryst got fired, ended up leaving before Chryst got fired, coming to IU, one of the great hires that Tom Allen ever made, believe it or not. But I just keep going back to that game when I was, 15 years ago, where Bielema put 83 on Bill Lynch. And then there was a game a couple years after that where Ohio State was on probation, and this was the old leaders and legends divisions.
Oh,
Indiana had a
boy.
chance to win out and make the Big Ten championship game, and the first game in that gauntlet was Wisconsin, and everybody had talked themselves into it was Kevin Wilson era football. Everybody had talked themselves into Indiana's going to go on this run. They're going to play in the Big Ten championship game. I think it was like 42-3 or something at halftime of that game. Wisconsin just steamrolled them. So getting an opportunity to play Wisconsin as a 30-point favorite and humiliate them and send off just such a great group of seniors that have just changed the identity of this program. It's like you said, let's make Saturday a really special day.
Absolutely. I remember the game 2 years ago where they played Wisconsin at home, won the game, remember? And Wisconsin was 5-2 or something like that. Like they had an okay record, and they came to Bloomington and Indiana won. And they had some momentum, and you looked at the rest of their schedule where they had Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue. Holy shit. Like Indiana could win 3 more games here to get to 6-6. They win that game, and then of course they lose out, and Tom Allen gets fired, and they hired this Signetti dude, and the rest has been history. But that Wisconsin game gave them so much momentum in 2023. It was something to kind of cheer about because you didn't expect it. It was the first game after Bob Knight died. There was a little speculation that maybe he had a curse on the IU football program, and he died, and they won a game, and now they're actually like really good. They've only lost 5 games since the dude died 2 years ago.
3 were in the same season.
I know, that's insane. That was a real fun one. I think my favorite moment with a matchup with Wisconsin was in 2020 when they went to Madison at Camp Randall with Jack Tuttle, Mike. Jack freaking Tuttle as the quarterback. And it was one of those smash mouth, grind it out kind of games, like a game you'd expect like with Iowa. And they won the game, and there was a top 25 game. I can't remember who was ranked what, but Indiana won the game, and that ended up being the high moment of the Tom Allen era. It only went downhill from there after that Wisconsin game in 2020. So Indiana's had Wisconsin's number the last few times they've played, I think, and they get a chance with them here on Saturday. One of the things with Luke Fickell is that this is a guy that I almost think, not personality-wise, but just the path he's taken and the latter move he took, it kind of reminds me of Archie Miller in a way, and what he did at Dayton and then came to Indiana. Fickell was great at Cincinnati, got them into a 4-team college football playoff, and then took the latter job and came to Wisconsin and left Cincinnati. And he never should have left Cincinnati. He could have built. Thank God Cincinnati is like idiots, because when he left and took the Wisconsin job, for people who don't know this, Cincinnati sat down and had a conversation with a guy by the name of Curt Cignetti, and the AD at Wisconsin, or at Cincinnati, I should say, I can't remember his name, said to Curt Cignetti, you just don't have enough P4 experience to lead our football program, and ended up hiring Scott frickin' Satterfield. So shout out the domino effect, I guess. Luke Fickell taking the Wisconsin job, and the folks at Cincinnati being just absolutely dumb idiots and hiring Scott Satterfield over Curt Cignetti. And now the rest is history.
You can always tell a lot about a fan base when they lose their head coach. For those of you who don't know, I live in the Louisville area. I work in Louisville. The morning Scott Satterfield got hired by Cincinnati, it was like they broke into National to celebrate. It was like, we're out of this guy's contract. Cincinnati's taking this guy from us. We can go, and then they go hire Jeff Brom from Purdue, the prodigal son returning. And then to know that they had Cignetti there and had a chance to hire him, and they went with Satterfield is it's so hilarious to me.
It's so funny, man. When Allen got fired, at Indiana. I think fans here for IU collectively, at least for me, because he was a nice guy and you liked what he did with LEO there for a minute, for like 2 years, 2019, 2020, and then the wheels just fell off the train. I had a chance to visit the University of Wisconsin this summer when I was up there and drove over to the stadium and stuff. And
Nice place.
it sits in like the Camp Randall. Not that this really matters, but it kind of sits in a weird area where it's like driving through Madison and the campus is kind of like very similar to like driving through Purdue, where it's kind of complex and all that and kind of tight. And that's how it was there at Camp Randall. And they were making renovations, but it's a historic place. It's a historic program. You can't forget what guys like Barry Alvarez did for that program, and even guys like Brett Bielema, what they did for that program. So this is not something to overlook. I know their record is bad, but this is a program that historically has been one of the kind of upper middle of the pack, maybe like right there with Iowa historically in the Big Ten.
They were the class of the Big Ten West. I think you can easily make that argument. I mean, it was supposed to be Nebraska when they brought Nebraska in, but Iowa and Wisconsin kind of took over the West. Purdue had 1 year. Nebraska never won the freaking Big Ten West, which is hilarious to me. But you mentioned a name, and I'll go back to all these reasons that I don't like Wisconsin football, and you mentioned one of the names, Barry Alvarez. People don't understand Barry Alvarez is not a good dude.
Why?
And I'm going to tell you this because if you go back to 2020, remember in the big 2020 was the year with COVID and all these weird things that we've got to, do just to get a season in place. So the Big Ten comes out and says you have to play X amount of games to play in the Big Ten championship. Fair. It became painstakingly clear that Michigan was going to bolt on the Ohio State game. So all of a sudden, the Big Ten starts scrambling because they could not fathom Ohio State not making the Big Ten championship game. Indiana had a chance to be there. Indiana did lose to Ohio State. And one of the guys who was spearheading that let's change the rules to get Indiana out of this game was Barry freaking Alvarez. He would have been the most red-ass son of a bitch if he was still coaching or AD at Wisconsin and they were trying to change the rules 2 weeks before the championship to get Wisconsin out of the game. But he is driving the car. Nah, man, we got to get Ohio because they were worried about the college football playoff, the 4-team playoff, and we got to get Ohio State to play Northwestern. And then when Indiana was clearly the second best team in the Big Ten, Alvarez campaigns to say, no, let's give our second best bowl to Northwestern. They deserve it. There was this like hierarchy of Big Ten teams that it was so much more beneficial to Wisconsin and Iowa and all these schools for Indiana just to keep sucking. And it felt like for years the conference was just going to go out of its way to, if it had a chance, and that was the year Indiana went, and unfortunately they blew the bowl game. They took the Big Ten patch off their uniforms for the bowl game that year because of all the shit that Alvarez and all those ADs pulled. I hope that there's just like they see Barry, just put Barry Alvarez's face on the Jumbotron so we could boo the shit out of him. I don't even know if he's still alive. I think he is. I don't know. But F Barry Alvarez, man. That's my Barry Alvarez rant for the day.
You mentioned a lot of stuff there that was in 2020. That was 5 years ago, Mike, and that seems like forever ago now. That's what I was thinking. It does, but it doesn't. As from an IU fan's perspective, it does, but it doesn't. And it does because it was 5 years ago, but they had those 3 seasons there where they sucked, and now they're good again and they're relevant. They were kind of relevant in 2020. That 2020 year was just so weird. And it seemed like such a year there where like Indiana was historically like what Wisconsin had been for all those years. They were consistent that year. They were winning games. They were playing kind of the way Wisconsin would, kind of that style. And Alvarez there, I didn't know about all that with Barry Alvarez. I knew that the rule had gotten changed because Indiana had played itself into a position there to go to the Big Ten championship. And I think in 2020 would have won against Northwestern. They had beaten Northwestern that season. They would have won the Big Ten title that year and maybe gone to the college football playoff, which at the time was just insane to wrap the 14 playoff. And the shit got changed there at the end. And I remember that year where you mentioned how they blew the bowl game against Ole Miss. They blew the game against Ole Miss, and it was because they were supposed to go to the Fiesta Bowl, and they changed it, and like Oregon got in or something, or whoever it was got in that year, and they ended up going to like the Outback Bowl. Everybody at that point was just done. They didn't want to be there. They didn't want to practice. You have like a month off there before you even play your bowl game. No one wanted to be around, and it cost them, and they didn't recover until 2024. So
I was going to say the funniest thing to me, and I go back to 2020, is everybody knew if Michigan got a chance to F Ohio State, they were going to, and they absolutely Harbaugh, like it was like I think he predetermined, we're going to have COVID that week. It was never a question whether Michigan was going to pull out of that game, and they obviously did, but it didn't matter because they changed the rules for Ohio State anyway.
And not to mention there that Purdue pulled out of the Old Oak and Bucket game twice. They were supposed to play Indiana twice, and both were canceled because of COVID. They were supposed to play them once, and then it was like, okay, you're going to play someone in the opposite division that like matches up where you were, and Purdue like happened to be there or something. And then they canceled it again because they got COVID. And maybe they did, but it was kind of disappointing because someone was supposed to get the bucket that year, and it would have been Indiana.
And the funny thing is Tom Allen used that as part of his reason for canceling a series that Indiana had scheduled against Jeff Brom in Louisville. And Louisville fans are like, oh, you guys are so afraid to play us. And blah. I was like, no, I think Tom Allen was just trying to put the screws to Jeff Brom for what happened in 2020. And I legitimately think there was something to that theory.
Happy to report from the control room that Barry Alvarez is alive and well in Madison, Wisconsin at the age of 78.
Go Barry.
All right. Predictions?
Hey, one thing before we get to predicting the Wisconsin, can we talk one basketball point, Greg? This is especially for you. Indiana, obviously the big win last night over Milwaukee. F.U. Miles Turner.
That's right. Couldn't even get a rebound against the Hoosiers.
That's right. Take that, Miles. Give us our freaking championship that you cost us. Anyway, Grant, prediction, 30.5-point favorite. What do you think?
I'm thinking Indiana tries to go out and lay the hammer down on senior day with this senior class going into the bye week, which will be nice. This is going to be a much needed bye week towards the end of it. Indiana's battled a few injuries. They played in so many tough games here lately. Penn State, Oregon at the very beginning of this stretch. This is going to be a much needed bye week coming up. I'm going to take Indiana to win the game 48-3, Mike.
48-3. I was going to go a little more optimistic than you. I'm going to go 56-7. I want to see if Wisconsin has implemented something called the forward pass into their playbook this week.
Give me 42-13 right on the line. I think it'll be over by the middle of the third quarter.
Love it.
First time 11-0, right?
Does Luke Fickell look like Adam Sandler or more like John Turturro from Mr. Deeds?
From Mr. what?
Mr. Deeds, the Adam Sandler movie.
Oh, too young.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
I mean, you
That's
can
older
catch
than-
that movie anytime on
That's older than he is, Mike.
It doesn't matter. That movie is just randomly on television more than any movie in the world.
Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.